communication without definition leads to disappointment. And we know that communication is the most, it's the most important tool inside of a relationship. You can't have a relationship without communication. The most important relationship in life is the relationship you have with yourself. So how are you communicating to yourself?
Welcome back to the podcast. I started this podcast as a way to help Black men in all aspects of our lives. Studies show on average we lose 2.8 years of our life when we're under heavy stress. And I think we can gain those 2.8 years back if we express ourselves healthily. Stick with me as I interview therapists, doctors, advocates, activists, and friends about how we can be better as Black men and as a Black community. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube and following us on Instagram and TikTok, you'll definitely want to do that. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. All right, y'all, I'm here with Jeff Cuthbertson. He is the founder of God Plus Therapy. He has his master's in counseling and 2 licenses, and he's also working on his CSAT license. Jeff, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing amazing, man. It's an honor to be on this platform with you, bro. I definitely appreciate this and humbled by sharing this platform with you, man, because you big. You're
Absolutely.
big.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, man. So we're going to get straight into it, man. Can you tell me a little bit about, not even a little bit, tell me the whole story about how did you get here? How did you get to God Plus Therapy, your licenses, your master's in counseling? Like, what's your story?
Man, let's start from the beginning, dog.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it started off with a divorce. Started off with marriage lasted for 4 years. We ended up getting divorced, and after divorce, I fell deep into depression, hard, strong depression. I mean, anxiety was on 100. I was isolating myself from everyone. This was around the time, if you remember, Orange Is the New Black, when that first came out on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine a young man who was a probation officer at the time, and then I started bartending at Ruby Tuesday at the time too, and I was living in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So imagine a young man who would leave the office, come home, and would lay on the couch with his phone in his hand, would watch Orange Is the New Black on his phone and not the TV, and I would do it in the dark with a bottle of Hennessy beside me, right? We're talking the 750 milliliter boy. And this was like every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Friday I would get 2. Why? Because it was the weekend. So it was like I had nothing to do on Saturday and Sunday. So I might as well just get 2. And it was bad, man. I was in a horrible, horrible space, man. The depression came from the thought of, hey, I messed up my last name. You know, I'm not going to be able to be a father for my son at the time because we birthed a beautiful baby boy within the marriage. The marriage, like I said, lasted 4 years. So after that time, while I was sitting there, I eventually decided to go to counseling. Mm-hmm. And inside of counseling, I realized what the problem was. And the problem was, it wasn't necessarily her. I didn't give her a chance to even be my wife, let alone be a wife. I learned that I felt effectively communicating my thoughts and feelings. So that title or that phrase, happy life, happy wife, I took that seriously, bro. Like seriously, to the point where I didn't even express what I wanted. I was just like, whatever you want, we're talking deeper than just what do you want to eat? We're talking deeper than what type of clothes do you want me to wear? It was more like, where do you want the money to go? What do you want? How do you want the household to look? What church do you want us to go to? It was so deep. And it was just like whatever she said. And it got to a point where I felt like I wasn't being heard. Like I felt like I was like kind of like this small, and it was all on me. I learned all of this inside of counseling. I learned triggers. I learned red buttons. I learned how much I really didn't value myself inside of counseling. And so once that happened, I remember if a young man is going to drink that much, of course, he's not going to be able to hold a job. So I lost my job and I had to move back in with my mother at that time, and my mother and father. That time I had to be about 30, 31. Around that time, I'm 38 now. So I had been about 30, 31 around that time. And I remember just moving back in with my mom, and it was a spot in my mom's house where the only way they knew I was there, my car was in the driveway. So I'll be in this back. We had built this kind of extension of the house for my grandmother because she was going through dementia at the time. And so we built it for her. So I had like my own bathroom, my own like little sitting area, my own little room, own walk-in closet, like own little refrigerator and all that stuff. Like I just had my own little space, and then still was drinking, still was isolating myself, still like I was still working at Ruby Tuesday. I remember I was working Ruby Tuesday bartending. And I remember before I went into a shift, I was in the parking lot and had like this Dodge Stratus, and I still had old bills. Like I had the car note, cell phone, light bill, and I had to pay about $900 a month for child support, right? And I just remember sitting there and all I had was like $500 in my pocket. So I'm like bawling, crying. I'm like, how did I get here? Like I'm not getting any better. Like on the outside, you were like, oh, Jeff, you're doing better now. You're away from that toxic situation. You're finding yourself. I'm like, not necessarily, I'm not. On the outside, I'm wearing a mask, telling people, yo, I'm good. But the inside, I'm dying inside, right? And I remember, it was horrible, bro. It was horrible. And I'm pretty sure everybody has been in this position where they just have this mask on, telling everybody that, hey, yeah, I'm doing great. In actuality, you're dying inside. And I just remember it was one Friday night, my mother was asking me, was I going to hang out with my best friend? And she wanted me to, she knew that this wasn't her son. Like this wasn't her happy-go-lucky son who always made people laugh. Like she couldn't understand, like I wasn't even going to hang out with my best friend, this guy that I grew up with, right? And I remember her tapping me on my chest and saying, I was sitting on the edge of the bed and she was like, this is not the man that I raised. And it like lit something up. It was like something just lit. And some of the brothers can admit, when your mother sit there and tells you that, and she kind of like, it's time to get yourself together. And I remember that following week, I was like, you know what? Let me do something. I got a degree. You know, I've been in the probation field for about 10 something years now. Let's get back into this thing. Let's start pulling ourselves back up. I started applying. I applied from Northern Virginia all the way down to 757 Tidewater area in Virginia, right? And I knew some people. I had some connections because I've been doing this probation job for at least 10 years now, right? Going on about 8 or 9 years now. And so I eventually landed a job back in Richmond, Virginia. And I say back in Richmond, Virginia, because that's where I did undergrad at VCU. And so I landed a job back in Richmond, Virginia, got back into probation, never left Ruby Tuesday. I moved back to Richmond. I moved in with my brother, LB. We're all fraternity Kappa men. So I moved in with my brother's LB and started living with him. Now you would think, okay, he's getting back on his feet, but I still wasn't mentally. Like I was still dealing with the demons of the depression, still dealing with the anxiety, still dealing with the failures, still dealing with lack of self-worth and all of that good stuff. So I was still dealing with that. So I'm hopping in and out of relationships. I'm getting back to Richmond. My narrative was like, yo, the prodigal son back. Let's have fun. Let's pop these bottles. Let's go out to these clubs. Let's go out and party. Let's do all these crazy things. And it was still trying to fill a void, right? It was still a hole there. And so I remember when I moved back, one of my good friends, he texted me. He said, yo, I need your help. I said, no doubt, of course, whatever you need. Like, I got you, doesn't matter. And he never called me back after that. And it was funny because during this conversation, and I knew he was a pastor, but during this conversation, I was headed to Henny-Palooza in Howard University's homecoming. And so those who ever been to a Henny-Palooza, crazy party. I mean, there's nothing there but Hennessy and juice. So everybody's drinking the same thing. I was so drunk at this party, bro. I do not remember having a conversation with Pusha T, Wale on stage. Like my friends was like, do you remember you talking about? I was like, no idea. I have no idea. But I remember talking to this man. If you can hear me, what I'm saying, I was still drinking, like still drinking excessively, emotionally drinking. While I was talking to my boy on the phone with him, and he's asking me for my help, I had a bottle of Hennessy in my lap, headed to Henny-Palooza. My best friend was driving. It was my birthday weekend. Howard homecoming usually fell on my birthday, so it was bad. I was in a horrible place, still dealing with the insecurities that were inside of me. So I got back from that party, and that weekend I started noticing on Instagram that my boy was like counting down into things. I said, okay, what is he counting down into? And I noticed he was counting down into the launch of a church. I said, you know what? I told him I was going to help him, support him. So I jumped into that church. I was in the back, of course, because of what I smelled like the night before. And then I started moving to the middle. I was like, yo, I'm really starting to feel this thing. I'm feeling some type of like connection here. There's something here that I need to grab onto. There's some form of peace here. Next thing I know, I was in the beginning, in front of the church. Next thing I know, I was on the security team. Next thing I know, I was head of security. Before I know it, he was asking me to lead the men's group, the fathers group, right? And I was like, who, me? Right. And as I was doing this and getting closer, my network started changing. Like my friends started changing. And once I noticed that my network started changing, I felt peace. I started feeling peace arise inside of me, that internal peace that only can happen when you change your network. essentially, right?
Right.
And so as I started getting deeper into the church, deeper into that, my profession started changing because, again, going back to my profession, I was still working as a PO, but still working as the bartender every Tuesday. So as a probation officer, I noticed something. My coworkers were doing some extra stuff. And I was like, what's this extra money they bringing in? It was like, yo, it's called in-home counseling. And people used to always tell me, Jeff, this is not your field. You're destined to something bigger. And I never knew what that bigger thing was. So I said, okay, let me look more into this thing. Started talking to some people and they said, hey, you need to go back to school and get your master's. So I went back and got my counseling master's. As I was getting my master's, I was diving into this mental health world. And I started remembering things I was learning from my counselor. And I was like, yo, this is where I'm supposed to be. Right. And as I was diving into that world, I was able to gain my master's in counseling, then go back and get my license and qualified mental health professional for adults and children. And I started enjoying that to the point where I was doing that part-time, let go Ruby Tuesday, and started diving into this thing really more. And as I was diving into it, I noticed something. I noticed that my mental was changing as I was helping other individuals and doing research, just like it was when I was doing the life groups. When I was leading the men, it caused me to study. And as I was studying, I felt more wisdom become bestowed upon me. Knowledge was being bestowed upon me. And my behavior started being changing because of the work that I was doing. And so I felt my mental started getting stronger and all of that good stuff. And so now I'm into this field, got my stuff. Career, I officially left that career and started doing mental health full time. And once I started doing that, right before the pandemic, I started doing that. And I created God Plus Therapy. Now, once I started doing that, I'm like, oh, God got me speaking in certain places. I'm speaking in Baltimore. I'm doing individual sessions. I'm leading groups throughout Richmond. Things are taking off. And right before this is coming up on a year. So last year, going into September, my mom passed away. My rock. Right. I was like, really? My rock of all people. And September 4th, we buried her. And then the following month in November, we buried my grandmother. Right. So I had to go through all of that trauma and all of that loss and still kind of dealing with it. But it was the beautiful thing about it is I had my network to fall back on. Mm-hmm. I had my brothers to fall back on. I had that solid foundation. I didn't realize that I was building this solid foundation when I moved back into Richmond and got back in the church. He was preparing me for September of 2021. 2021. Like he was preparing me for that thing, preparing me mentally for what's about to happen with my mother and my grandmother, right? So then I kept pushing, and I realized that what God Plus Therapy is for those individuals who are tired of hearing that praise, oh, just pray about your anxiety. Because I kept hearing that the whole time I was dealing with my divorce. Oh, just pray about your fear. Just pray about your emotions. Pray about your insecurities because God's going to take care of you. And so I'm sitting there like, but I prayed, and after I finished praying, and nothing changed. Mm-hmm. And so then I created the God Plus Therapy. You do the prayer, you have the faith, you do the work with it, which is called the therapy part. Now, the beautiful thing about therapy is it doesn't just look like you sitting down with someone like me and me asking you questions about your childhood trauma. Therapy can be you going to a park with a journal. Therapy could be you going to the beach. There could be a guy's night around the bonfire talking about the playoff games. There could be your wine tasting with your girlfriends. There could be you building a fort with your kid on a Sunday afternoon watching the latest Disney movie. There's so many different forms of therapy. It just doesn't sit with or stop with you coming into my office, sitting down on the couch and me asking you questions about your childhood. So that's where God Plus Therapy came from. It came from my past traumas, my past anxieties, along with my education and along with people telling me, hey, I'm tired of people telling me to pray about my stuff.
Man, and that is such a powerful story, man. Yeah. Like you talked about you making that transition into the church and then like kind of changing your network of people and that preparing you for what happened when your mom passed away and then eventually your grandmother. And you said like it was preparing you for that moment, but the way I see it is like God was kind of preparing you for the rest of your life, right? Like honestly, that's the way I see it. Like God was really preparing you for the rest of your life and giving you that structure and that support because he knows where he was positioning you to be.
Yeah.
And one thing that I tell people all the time is like, I started a Kizzle brand, which was like the project before Express Yourself Black Man in 2017. And I
Mhm.
always used to wonder, like, I felt like I had the right messaging. I had the right level of work ethic. I had the right level of like determination in terms of what I was doing. And I knew that what I was doing was important, but it just never took off like Express Yourself Black Man. And it's
Mhm.
because I wasn't in the right place yet. I
Mhm.
wasn't in the right place.
Mhm.
I didn't have the right network of people around me. I didn't have the right support system. I wasn't doing enough healing. I just didn't have it yet. Right.
Mhm.
And so what I try to tell people is like, yo, when you are ready, things will get bestowed upon you.
Yes,
And until then, you need to do everything you can to get ready.
I
Like,
agree.
honestly. And so I wanted to ask you, you talked about like feeling like you just didn't have it figured out, feeling like a kind of like almost like you were failing in a sense, especially after your divorce. What
Mhm.
advice would you give men that feel like they're a failure?
Understand your beliefs. So our behaviors come from our personal beliefs. Like, and what a belief is just an idea that we hold to be true, right? And so what you got to do is pay attention to what idea that you're holding to be true. That idea of me feeling like a failure, I believe that. So I value failure. So I love and honor and respect failure. And so now what I did when I saw failure, I owned it failure. I didn't look at it as a learning tool. I looked at it as in a negative way. And so my advice to the individual who feels like a failure is to start working on your belief system, right? And so, Jeff, okay, that sounds good, but how do I even work on my belief system? How do you change the fact that I'm thinking that I'm a failure because it's hard for me to do that? Listen to this one. Communication without definition leads to disappointment. And we know that communication is it's the most important tool inside of a relationship. You can't have a relationship without communication. The most important relationship in life is the relationship you have with yourself. So how are you communicating to yourself? That's
Mm.
the number one advice I would give to an individual or a young man who's dealing with this failure and this mindset that they're nothing but a failure. How are you communicating to yourself? Because how you're communicating to yourself is going to cultivate that belief system, that idea that you hold to be true. Because whatever you believe, you're going to value it, and then your feelings are going to portray whatever that you're valuing, and then your behavior is going to respond to that. And so whatever you do, so what you have to do, and the key point is, how are you talking to yourself? If there's no definition to your communication, to your self-talk, your self-motivation, your self-inspiration, if there's no definition to it, if you're not defining it, if you're just saying, hey, I'm a loser or I'm nothing, that's what you're going to behave as, because that's the
Right.
idea you're creating. Now, here's the thing. You can say, this is how you communicate yourself. Hey, I failed here, but this is not the end. Hey, I feel alone. I feel lonely, but I know I'm not alone. See how that thing works? And you're admitting something, but you're putting that but inside of there to negate what you just meant. And so they can follow along, so you can end that sentence with something positive. End that sentence with the right side, the right idea to hold true, so you can start valuing the right things. So again, don't value the failure as a mistake and as failure as itself, but value it as a learning tool. And you do that by communicating to yourself effectively.
I love that. I absolutely love that, for real. Because I tell people all the time, it's really just about training your mindset, right? And then
Yeah,
how you like your inner voice. A lot
yeah.
of us, like especially as men, we have a very negative inner voice. So when it comes to any kind of mistakes that we make, we get on ourselves. Like I made a
Mhm.
post where I said, "Here are 10 things that I learned from talking to Black men." And in that post, like the ninth thing, the first part of that post, I think the ninth item I put was, Black men are already hard on ourselves, so we don't need that. We don't need more of that from society. And
Right.
that's something that I've really seen with just like people in general, but specifically with us as Black men. Like we have
Mhm.
this demeanor that we have to always have it all figured out, right? And like we're super, super, super hard on ourselves, especially when we don't feel like we have it figured out and we are comparing ourselves to other people, right? Because to
Mhm.
be honest, what really is failure? Like, what is that
Right.
even, right? Like
Right.
it's really constructed by us. Like
Oh yeah.
our definition of success, right? Like we construct all of these things, right? So
Mhm.
I always tell people, man, you don't really fail. You just learn lessons, man. You
There
don't
you
really
go.
fail. You
There
learn
you
lessons.
Yeah.
The only time you fail is when you decide that you failed. Honestly, because nobody's
Mhm.
saying that you can't do that, that you can't try that thing again. That's
Mhm.
the way I always think about it.
Jordan said, "I never lost. I just ran out of time."
And you know what's so funny? I love that quote from Joe. I'm so glad you said that. That is so facts, man. Like I just ran out of time.
I just
I
ran
really
out of
just
time.
ran out of time.
I ran out of time.
Honestly, man.
I see you tomorrow when I get up.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful way to look at it. Cause like, yo, if I had more time, if I had this tool or resource or whatever, I could have probably done a better job. One affirmation that I use a lot is that I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have. No one's opinion of me matters except for my own.
That's good.
Right.
That's good.
I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have. No one's opinion of me matters except for my own. And when we start to think about that, we understand that even if we did fail, we did the best that we could. So we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves and just allow ourselves to continue to work at it until we get it. Because you know, in 2017, I started a Kizzle brand. You know how many times I failed with that? How many times I had things where I felt like we're gonna take off and just didn't do as well. If I had stopped and decided, like, you know what, I don't want to do this no more, we would never have Express Yourself Black, man. Like never, right? Like I would have never got to the point where I innovated enough to make Express Yourself Black, man, and continued enough to make Express Yourself Black, man. Even when I think about the early days with Express Yourself Black, man, like when I first started, the page wasn't at 45K. You know what I'm saying? Like I started at 60 followers last year, honestly. And I just worked my way from there. So it's like, think about the incremental steps that you can take to get yourself to where you want to get to. Don't think about of course, think about the long-term goal, but make some short-term goals that you want to accomplish. Some things that you could do right now today that'll get you at least one step closer to your long-term goal. Cause that's all I was doing, man. That's all I really was doing. And so like one thing that I liked about your story is that you talked about therapy, and it kind of reminded me of my story where you were kind of doing the work, but you weren't really reaping the results. So it's like you were in therapy, but you're not really getting to the point where you're able to assess like what's going wrong and like making like significant change. And for me, when I went through my period of depression, like it was hard for me because I wasn't even actually in therapy. So people thought I was doing better after I got out of like my initial phase of like depression, but I still was kind of struggling behind the scenes because I still felt like, man, I don't have my life together. I don't know what I'm doing. And I wasn't in therapy at that time. So I wasn't doing the inner work. So I wanted to ask you, why didn't therapy work for you initially?
I didn't believe. I didn't believe. If you're gonna go into therapy, the first thing you have to do is have that remember, going back to having that self-conversation, you have to have that conversation and say, I believe that this is going to work. That's what anything we do, man. Like anything that we do, if you don't believe, what's the point of doing it?
Right.
What's the point of actually even getting out the bed? That belief itself will push you out the bed. That belief itself will have you to pick up the phone and say, hey, I need help. You have to believe that you need help. Because if you don't believe that you need help, you're going to walk around and being just like I was when I first moved back to Richmond. Was like, hey, I'm good. I'm all right. Look, I'm laughing. I'm joking. I'm doing this. I'm buying people dinners. I'm going out to eat. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And then after the day is over, I'm back home in my room crying. Because I didn't believe in the stuff. And if you notice, it really didn't click until I started going back to school and I started remembering what the guy told me. I had to go back to my notebooks and my books and started going up. You can't go to therapy just because you want to fix something. I was going to therapy because I wanted to fix the marriage. I wasn't going to therapy because I wanted to fix me. So if you don't go to therapy, you need to go to therapy with the mindset of, I need to fix me. If you're going to therapy to fix a situation, then you're going to fall. That's why it's great to go to therapy when nothing's going on. You don't have to go to therapy because something is going on. You can go to therapy just to celebrate you, to get to understand you. So then when something does happen, because we all live life and things happen in life, things is going to happen. So when that storm comes, you have a solid foundation to say, I know who I am. I just have this tool to help me fight through this thing, right? So again, don't go to therapy to fix a situation because then you're not going to believe in it. You need to go to therapy to fix you. That's when it starts to work. That's when that thing is starting to grind and you start seeing gears moving and you start saying stuff like, I never looked at it that way. Yo, my therapist said that. You ever talk to somebody and be like, yo, my therapist said that. We call that in mental health world a breakthrough. And you won't have breakthroughs if there's no belief in it.
Man, you are spitting facts right now, man. Nah, absolutely, man. One thing that I love that you said that I think is so important for everybody to hear is it's great to go to therapy when nothing's wrong. Because I get that.
That's the best time to go.
I get that all the time. People will tell me, yo, bro, I'm fine, right? Like, I'm good.
Mhm.
Like, there's nothing wrong. I'm straight. Do you think I should still go to therapy? And what I told somebody the other day is like, whenever I hear that, like, kind of red flags kind of like go off in my head a little bit. Cause I'm like,
Mhm.
yo, listen, you may just not know what's wrong right now.
Right.
Like, honestly, because we all got something. Like,
Right.
you ain't telling me you went through how many ever years on earth and there's nothing wrong with the way that you see things and the way that you approach things. Like, you just may not have that level of self-awareness to understand what it is. And that tells me that you should definitely be in therapy, like
Mhm.
without a doubt, because it'll help you to kind of work through some of those things.
It's so much you can learn about yourself. It's so much. Just because you got you just because my wife and I am married now to an amazing woman, beautiful daughter. My son is amazing. Everybody's doing good. But just because my wife and I are doing good doesn't mean we stop having conversations. We can always get to the next level. You can always get to that next level, and therapy is there to help you get to that next level. Again, therapy does not just look like you coming to sit with me.
Mhm.
Just because you're doing good doesn't mean you don't need to take your journey and go down to that local park and sit there and journal your thoughts for the day, or do a grateful a gratitude activity. Doesn't mean you don't have to do. You can't do that, right? If you're going to sit here and want to get to the next level and want to be that almighty husband or that great father or that great business owner, right? If you want to get to that 6 figures, you better take care of your mental health.
Facts.
You got to take care of your mental health, and you do that by any means necessary.
Absolutely, man. So please tell us again about God Plus Therapy, what you're doing, the mission, where people can find you, anything that you want to promote, your IG, socials, all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm solely right now on Instagram right now. Okay. And there's a link. I have apparel on that link right there. There's also a self-care exercise there, a free self-care exercise where it's called cross the across the line or whatever. Basically, my wife just confused me right there. She threw me off. But basically, it's a free exercise to help you see yourself the way God sees you, right? And it's definitely self-explanatory. You'll see it where you're just going to put all the negative thoughts and anything negative someone said to you on one side, and then you're going to be the complete opposite on the other side. If you notice, you're crossing over to the cross. You're laying it on the cross, and that's where God is taking. Jesus is taking it for you. He's taking it. The blood is washing it, and you'll be able to see yourself the way God is seeing you, right? So that free exercise is up there. I also have these new free I am statement, not free, no, these I am statement cards that's on that site as well. And I do offer individual sessions too. And so there's 4 a month. All you have to do is DM me or email me at godplustherapy@gmail.com. We'll figure this thing out, how many sessions you want a month. Then I'll give you your price, set you up with your dates. You'll pay for it to lock your dates in. And we'll do these mindset sessions where they're 30 minutes long. Each one ends in a prayer. And I not only help you and motivate you, inspire you, but I'm also going to give you tangible things to do between sessions that help you physically reach that level that you want to reach, that level that makes you feel unbreakable. You might bend a little bit, but you won't break with the skills that I'm giving you inside these individual sessions. And then, like I say, you can find me on Instagram, always posting some motivational things, always using my platform to inspire and not break down. So yeah.
Absolutely. And the Instagram is God Plus Therapy, right?
God Plus Therapy. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, man, thank you so much for the dope conversation. I really appreciate you, brother.
No, I appreciate you, man. I'm humble by this, man.
Yo, I'm excited, man. We're currently building the exclusive community, and it's going to have so many dope features. We're partnering with a Black organization to offer low-cost therapy to each member of the exclusive community. And when I say low cost, I mean that members will be able to get therapy sessions for less than $50, regardless of who they are and where they are. We're also going to have free ebooks and courses, including both the Hurting to Healing ebook and the therapy ebook I'm currently writing, live podcast episodes where you'll be able to interact with the guest and I in real time, community forums, exclusive merch, and categorized content so you can easily find information that may be useful to you. So go to expressyourselfblackman.com/therapy and register for early access. It's literally a 30-second process. I just need your name, email, and social media handle to make sure you get access before anyone else. And before I dip, I just want to thank you for your support. Without people like you, none of this would be possible. I can't wait to see you when we launch.
Sometimes feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. A shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. No, you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for.